Almost everyone who watches Vikings comes out of the first season loving Athelstan. He is the one person in that world who never lies for advantage, never kills to get ahead, never puts his own standing above another man's life. When people say the show has a heart, they usually mean him. I felt exactly the same way, and I want to be clear before going any further that nothing I am about to say is a criticism of him. Athelstan does not do a single wrong thing across those 9 episodes. He is precisely as good as he appears to be. That turns out to be the problem, and the problem belongs to the people who wrote him. The show ran into a serious difficulty in its 2nd episode, and Athelstan is the solution to it. Consider what the first season is actually asking you to accept. The first substantial thing you watch its heroes do is walk into a building full of unarmed men and kill every one of them. Rollo stabs an old priest in the middle of a prayer. He chases down a monk who is running away and opens his back with an axe. He drags another one out of a latrine and stomps him to death. Nobody in that monastery fights back. Nobody in it is armed. There is no honor available anywhere in the room. Whatever charisma Ragnar has, and he has an enormous amount of it, none of it survives a scene like that on its own. By rights, the audience should walk off that island unable to look at these men. So the show puts one monk in the room who lives. Ragnar comes into the main building with Leif and Eric and finds a young man holding a book while everything around him burns. The monk begs for his life in Norse, which stops Ragnar cold. And then Ragnar does the thing the entire series is built on. He asks him a question. He wants to know why a man would stay behind for a book, and Athelstan tells him that without the word of God, there is only darkness. 90 seconds earlier, you were watching a slaughter. Now, you are watching a conversation between 2 curious men. The killing has not stopped. It has not been softened, and nobody has apologized for it. It has been moved into the background, and something more interesting has been set in front of it. Your attention goes where the story points it, and the story is pointing directly at the only man on that island who is not swinging an axe. The clearest evidence of what Athelstan is for sits in the things the show refuses to let him do. He watches his monastery burn from the shoreline. He watches one of his brothers try to run. He boards the ship, kisses his cross, and pulls his hood over his head. Somewhere on the crossing, another monk taken from Lindisfarne dies, and Athelstan goes to Ragnar and tells him that Senwolf is gone. Ragnar picks the body up and throws it over the side of the ship the way you would empty a bucket. Athelstan says nothing at all. He never says anything about it, then or afterward. Across the whole season, he never turns to Ragnar and tells him that he killed every person Athelstan knew. He never names it. He never accuses anybody of anything. He grieves constantly and he blames nobody, and that silence was a decision somebody made at a desk. Anger from Athelstan would bring the entire structure down, because he is the only person in the story with the standing to be angry, and the second he used it, the audience would remember that they were allowed to be angry too. There is a smaller version of the same move on the journey home. Ragnar leads him back from the coast on a rope, the way you would lead an animal to market, and at one point Athelstan drops to his knees and waits to be killed the way the other captured monks were killed. Instead, Ragnar cuts the rope, takes part of the load Athelstan has been carrying, and walks on. The mercy is real, and Athelstan is grateful for it, and the only reason there was anything to be merciful about is that Ragnar put the rope around his neck in the first place. That pattern runs through the whole season. Ragnar creates the cruelty, then relieves a portion of it, and collects the credit for the relief. So the show sends him the other way. He looks after Ragnar's children while Ragnar and Lagertha are away raiding. He teaches them. Ragnar tells Bjorn that he does not regard the monk as a slave, that he is a responsible person, and he means it. When Athelstan finally asks for his legal freedom, he admits in the same breath that he is not treated like a slave and has no wish to escape. He is there for Haraldsson's death. He is there at the funeral, and when the family moves into the Great Hall, he becomes the steward of Ragnar's household. Every hour he spends in that house is another hour of evidence that the man who destroyed his home is capable of decency, and the evidence keeps arriving from the one witness who could destroy it instead. There is an obvious defense here, and it deserves a real answer. Athelstan is not a cardboard cutout wheeled in to hold a position. He is the best written character in the season, and his faith is a genuine crisis rather than a costume. He prays in secret. He keeps a cross he is not supposed to have. He is pulled between 2 worlds and belongs to neither of them, and the show gives him a real interior life rather than a function. All of that is true, and it is exactly why he works. A crude device would fail on contact. The audience would feel the hand pushing them and push back. Athelstan has to be genuinely alive, genuinely gentle, genuinely torn, or he cannot do the job the show needs him for. His depth is the machinery, It is not an argument against it. Then comes Uppsala, and the show does something it should never have been able to survive. Lagertha's son is born dead. Ragnar decides the gods are angry with him, and starts working out what he has done to earn it, and the answer he arrives at is the Christian living under his roof. So he makes the pilgrimage to the temple, and he brings the Christian with him, and he asks Athelstan to come along as though he were being invited on a family trip. Ragnar has chosen him to be a human sacrifice. Athelstan does not know. He is never told. At one point, he asks what an empty pen is for, and Ragnar tells him it holds the humans who have been chosen, and leaves the sentence there. Rollo gives him mushrooms the night before. A woman named Thiri finds him at the festival, leads him away, and bathes him, and when he asks why she is doing this, she tells him only that she has to. He is being prepared, and he is the one person on that hill who does not know what he is being prepared for. In the temple, the priest asks whether he came of his own free will, and Athelstan says yes. The priest asks whether he is still a Christian, and Athelstan says no. The priest makes him say it 3 times, and 3 times he denies his God, standing there with his cross wound around his wrist beneath his sleeve, and they reject him. The seer tells the group that he is neither willing nor acceptable, that his heart is corrupt. He is not even good enough to die for gods he does not believe in, on behalf of a man who was fully prepared to let it happen. Someone has to take his place, or the gods will withdraw their protection from all of them. Rollo looks at the floor and stays seated. Floki starts to stand and Helga stops him. Arnie begins to rise. Leif gets there first, volunteers, and is put to death in front of everyone. Leif walked into the monastery at Lindisfarne beside Ragnar. He was standing in that room when Ragnar decided the monk was worth keeping alive. He is the man who dies so that the monk can go on living. Afterward, Ragnar leans over to Athelstan and tells him his god finally came through for him. Athelstan gives him a look, and that look is the closest he ever comes to holding Ragnar responsible for arranging his death. Then, the season moves on. The friendship continues. It is never raised again. Ragnar brought his closest friend to a temple to have his throat opened. He lied to him for days about why he was there. He watched another man die in his place, and he paid nothing for it. No confrontation, no rupture, not one scene where he is made to account for what he tried to do. An attempted murder cost him a single look of contempt, and by the following episode, even that has evaporated. He gets away with it because Athelstan lets him. The defense people reach for at this point is that Ragnar genuinely loved him, and that is true, and it makes the whole thing considerably worse. He was not disposing of a slave he had grown bored of. He picked the person closest to him in the world, decided the gods would want that one specifically, and carried it all the way to the temple door. The affection was real the entire time he was doing it. He chose him anyway. The show then spends the rest of the season using that same affection to keep you from thinking too hard about the choice, and it works, because the two of them are wonderful together, and because Athelstan never brings it up again. That is the work Athelstan performs across the entire season. He is the only person in the story with the standing to condemn Ragnar, and he never once uses it. Not for the monastery, not for Sinwolf going over the side, not for Uppsala. He forgives all of it, quietly and permanently. And because you have spent 9 episodes looking at Ragnar through Athelstan's eyes, his forgiveness quietly becomes your own. You are not permitted to be angrier at Ragnar than his own victim is. Doing so would feel ridiculous, like you had misunderstood something everyone else could see. The show never gives you the alternative. There is no surviving monk who hates him, no Saxon who spits at his feet. Nobody who looks at Ragnar calls him exactly what he is and is allowed to be correct about it. Every exit from liking this man has been quietly sealed, and not one person watching ever went looking for one. None of this happened, incidentally. There was no monk carried home from Lindisfarne who raised a raider's children, learned to love him, and forgave him for planning his murder. Athelstan is an invention. Somebody sat down, worked out that an audience was going to need a way to keep watching after the 2nd episode, and built one, then gave it a book to hold, a language to beg in, and a wound that never turns into a grudge. Nobody was guessing about that need. They knew precisely who would be sitting there. They knew that a person who turns on a show called Vikings wants the raid to be thrilling, and does not want to feel like a monster for enjoying it, and they built the one instrument that settles both of those at once. They needed a victim who stays, and who loves them back. Put him in the room, and the problem dissolves so cleanly that most people never notice a problem was ever there. And it worked on me, which is the part I keep coming back to. I watched a man get dragged out of a latrine and stamped to death by a character I would spend the next 6 seasons cheering for, and the show offered me a monk to look at instead, and I took him immediately and gratefully. I did not sit with the discomfort for even one episode, because I did not want to. I had come to watch Vikings do Viking things, and I needed somewhere to put the part of that I could not enjoy. Athelstan is where I put it. The alibi was mine the whole time, and the show simply supplied it. So here is what the first season quietly proves, and it says more about the people watching than about the people who made it. Forgiving a slaughter takes exactly one survivor willing to forgive it on your behalf. That is the entire price. It is astonishingly cheap, and everyone who finished those 9 episodes loving Ragnar paid it without noticing they had. The men who actually died on Lindisfarne got none of this. Nobody spared them. Nobody carried them home, learned their language, raised children beside them, and came to love them anyway. What they got was one morning in June and a few horrified lines from a scholar who heard about it hundreds of miles away and could not believe what he was reading. Someone could make that show. It would be more accurate than anything in the first season of Vikings, and it would belong to the people this actually happened to. You would not watch it, neither would I. So somebody wrote us a monk.